Welcome to Unveiling Mythical Legends. Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today I want to ask a rather crazy question. Have you ever wondered why, even though humans possess such extraordinarily complex brains, we seem to use only a small fraction of them in everyday life? Why does our physical potential far exceed what we normally demonstrate? In extreme situations, some people can flip over a car with their bare hands to rescue someone, and ordinary individuals can suddenly sprint at astonishing speeds during a fire. What's really going on here? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you won't miss future updates.
Haha, that question is fascinating. Behind it may lie a startling possibility that human genes contain some kind of built-in locking mechanism, often referred to as a genetic lock. In other words, our everyday abilities may represent only a restricted version of our true potential. If that lock were ever released, humanity might evolve into something entirely different.
That sounds like science fiction. Can you give a real-world example?
Absolutely. Let me tell you about a documented case from 1982 in California. A mother watched in horror as her son became trapped beneath a car weighing over a ton. Under normal circumstances, no average person could possibly lift such a vehicle. Yet in that moment, she unleashed unimaginable strength and managed to raise the car high enough for bystanders to rescue her child. The cost, however, was severe. Medical examination later revealed extensive muscle tears and minor bone fractures. This phenomenon is often referred to as hysterical strength.
Incredible. So where does that surge of strength come from? Why don't we experience it all the time?
The explanation may surprise you. Our DNA likely contains protective regulatory mechanisms, something akin to a biological limiter, comparable to a speed governor in a computer or engine. It keeps our physical output within a safe operational range. This isn't a design flaw, it's an evolutionary safeguard. Without it, we would routinely injure ourselves by exerting forces beyond what our tissues can withstand.
So our genes still hold many hidden secrets?
Definitely. The human genome contains roughly 3 billion base pairs. Less than 2% of them code for proteins, the portion traditionally labeled as functional genes. What about the remaining 98%? Scientists once called it junk DNA, assuming it had little purpose. However, more recent research shows that much of it plays crucial regulatory roles, acting like switches and control circuits that determine which genes are activated and which remain silent.
So some genes are essentially switched off most of the time?
Exactly. And here's where the idea becomes even more intriguing. Some of these silenced genes might relate to ancestral traits, stronger musculature, sharper sensory perception, perhaps even enhanced regenerative capacity. Consider organisms like starfish, which can regenerate an entire body from a fragment. Humans cannot do that, but it's not necessarily because we lack the genetic blueprint. It may be that such capacities are tightly regulated or permanently suppressed within our genomic architecture.
Wow, that's incredible. Are there any more concrete examples?
Yes, there are. In 2010, researchers in Berlin discovered a gene called myostatin, which surprisingly inhibits muscle growth rather than promoting it. Sounds counterintuitive, right? But it makes sense evolutionarily. Overly developed muscles require massive amounts of energy. In ancient times, when food was scarce, excessive musculature could actually endanger survival. So evolution essentially installed a brake on our muscles.
Are there exceptions? People who don't have this gene?
Absolutely, and the results are astonishing. Studies found that some people naturally lack this inhibitory gene, and their muscles develop abnormally fast and strong. Even without training, they can have physiques comparable to professional athletes. One famous case is a German boy who was born with extremely well-developed muscles. By age 4, he could effortlessly lift 3-kilogram dumbbells, his muscles were sharply defined, body fat almost non-existent. He's like a naturally upgraded version of a human.
Wow. So basically, every person has the potential to be superhuman, it's just locked away?
That's one way to look at it, but there's a cost. These genetic locks exist to balance safety and potential. Muscle strength could theoretically surge 5 to 10 times normal, but if the brain's control fails, bones and tendons could tear, like an overclocked computer burning out.
So it's not just strength, the brain has locks too?
Exactly, And it gets even more fascinating. Have you heard the idea that humans only use 10% of their brains? The number is debated, but the truth is that our brains have enormous potential. We have around 100 billion neurons, each connecting with thousands of others, creating a network more complex than the entire internet, yet we use only a tiny fraction of it. Why? A fully active brain consumes massive energy, more than the body can normally supply. So evolution created a low-power mode to conserve energy.
Has anyone ever managed to break through this limit?
There are rare cases. Take people with savant syndrome, for example. In certain domains, they demonstrate extraordinary abilities. Some can map an entire city perfectly after flying over it once, others can perform mental calculations faster than a calculator, and some can replicate music flawlessly after a single listen. Their brains aren't filtered or restricted in the same way most people's are.
That's insanely powerful. But surely there's a downside?
Absolutely. These individuals often face difficulties in social interaction, language, or emotional understanding. This shows that these genetic and neurological locks aren't accidental, they're part of a balancing system. You can't max out every capability at once. Trade-offs are necessary.
Speaking of which, I can't help but ask, besides strength and brain power, what else do our genes lock away? Could aging itself be genetically programmed?
Exactly, you heard that right. Human aging might not be purely a natural phenomenon, but rather a programmed process designed by our genes. Sounds a bit absurd, doesn't it? Why would our own DNA intentionally cause us to grow old and die?
That sounds almost like a conspiracy. Explain.
Haha, there's actually an evolutionary logic behind it. For the survival of a species, individual death is necessary. If every generation never died, resources would be monopolized by long-living individuals, leaving little room for the next generation to thrive. The species would struggle to adapt to environmental changes. So evolution chose a harsh strategy. After completing reproductive duties, individuals gradually age, freeing up resources for offspring. This is closely linked to telomeres, protective caps at the ends of chromosomes. Each time a cell divides, the telomeres shorten a bit. When they're gone, cells stop dividing and eventually die.
Wow, so our lifespan limit is actually a genetic safety mechanism? Is there a way to break through it?
Theoretically, yes. Scientists have already extended the lifespans of some lab animals. For example, in mice, activating silence genes or inhibiting aging-related genes has doubled or even more than doubled their lifespan. If translated to humans, theoretically we could live to 200 years or beyond. But imagine the societal impact. Young generations might never get a chance, resources would be stretched, and civilization could stagnate.
Haha, that sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. But does this mean our perceptual abilities might also be locked?
Absolutely. Human senses are actually very limited. For instance, the light we see is only a tiny fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum, the sound frequencies we hear are narrow, our sense of smell is almost negligible. Compare that to other animals. Eagles can spot prey from kilometers away, bats navigate via echolocation, and dogs' sense of smell is tens of thousands of times stronger than ours.
So why did we lose these abilities?
Most likely during evolution. When humans started walking upright, using tools, and developing language, some senses became less critical. The brain reallocated resources to vision and higher cognition, turning off other senses. But the genes for those abilities didn't disappear, they're just dormant. In theory, if we could reactivate them, human sensory abilities could even surpass those of many other animals.
Really? Are there actual examples that support this?
Absolutely. Take blind individuals, for example. With long-term training, some develop echolocation abilities similar to bats. They can detect the location and shape of nearby objects just by listening to clicks or tapping sounds. Others, after losing their sight, develop incredibly sharp olfactory senses, able to detect smells imperceptible to most people. These cases show us that human sensory potential far exceeds what we normally experience. It's just suppressed by the brain under ordinary circumstances.
That's incredible. Could it be that humans' so-called sixth sense or extrasensory perception is also a result of these genetic locks?
This is where things get even more speculative. Many people claim to experience precognition, telepathy, or other supernatural phenomena. While the scientific community remains skeptical, some of these occurrences are hard to explain through conventional means. For instance, someone might sense that a loved one is in danger even from thousands of kilometers away, or occasionally foresee an event before it happens. From the perspective of genetic locks, these abilities could represent latent potential in underdeveloped regions of the brain.
That sounds like science fiction, but it's plausible. Could quantum physics offer some explanation here?
Some researchers propose that consciousness might involve more than just the brain's electrochemical activity. It could have a quantum component. If the brain can process quantum information, then seemingly impossible phenomena might be theoretically understandable, such as non-local connections between consciousnesses or even the perception of probabilistic future events. While this is still speculative, it reinforces the idea that human potential far exceeds what we currently recognize.
If one day we could scientifically unlock these genetic locks, could we really become superhumans, with strength, intelligence, and senses fully activated at will?
In theory, yes. Especially with today's gene editing technologies like CRISPR, we can directly modify DNA sequences. Scientists have even successfully edited human embryo genes. Although it raises major ethical debates, technically there's no barrier. In other words, we could knock out restrictive genes and activate dormant ability genes, potentially creating an upgraded version of humanity.
That sounds straight out of a sci-fi movie, but can we really control the process?
That's the biggest challenge. Genes interact in extremely complex ways. Changing one gene could trigger a cascade of reactions with completely unpredictable outcomes. Remember that German boy with the hyper-developed muscles? His extraordinary strength came with a heavier burden on his heart and possibly a shorter lifespan. Unlocking a gene's potential often carries trade-offs. Gain one ability, and you may pay a price somewhere else.
So genetic locks aren't just limitations, they're a form of balance. But what if all humans unlock their genes?
That's where things get really complicated. Imagine everyone suddenly becoming super strong or hyper-intelligent. Social rules could collapse, competition would intensify, relative advantages would vanish, and civilization might descend into chaos. It could even challenge the very definition of humanity. Would we still call ourselves human?
Wow, so maybe some historical geniuses or superhumans were actually partially unlocked examples.
Very likely. Take Leonardo da Vinci, painter, sculptor, architect, musician, mathematician, engineer, anatomist. Could an ordinary person achieve that? Or Einstein, while working at the patent office, he formulated the theory of relativity that changed the world. His brain structure and neuron connectivity were extraordinary. Scientists still debate how much was innate versus acquired, but it's clear they were closer to a partially unlocked genetic state. They could be seen as precursors of humanity's future potential.
If the genetic lock theory holds, what does it mean for human civilization?
Perhaps our current state is just a transitional phase. In ancient times, genetic locks protected us from harsh environments. Unlocking them would have led to rapid death. But now, with safe living conditions, abundant food, and advanced medicine, we may finally be at a point where some restrictions could be lifted. Evolution never stops, it's just that our changes are slow. Modern human genes have already evolved significantly compared to 10,000 years ago. Lactose tolerance increased, brain size slightly decreased, and our bodies are more adapted to sedentary lifestyles.
So, if we use gene editing to accelerate evolution, could humans achieve in a few generations what originally would have taken tens of thousands of years?
Absolutely possible. But that raises the ultimate question: what path should humanity take? Should we continue as a locked species, evolving slowly over millennia? Or should we actively unlock our genes, accepting the risks to pursue a leap forward? Or maybe there's a third way, selectively unlocking only the safe parts. This is a philosophical and scientific challenge that all of human civilization will eventually have to confront.
It sounds like genetic locks aren't just a biological issue, they're a philosophical one too. Who are we and what could we become?
Exactly. Just thinking about these questions is valuable. Whether genetic locks exist or not, and whether we should unlock them, one thing is clear: human potential far exceeds what we normally imagine. Each of us is an untapped treasure chest full of infinite possibilities.
So even without gene editing, through training, learning, and exploration, we can still unlock more of our potential?
Precisely. That mother who lifted a car, scholars with exceptional memory, ordinary people showing courage in crises, they all demonstrate that human limits are far beyond what we think. Genetic locks may just be a door, and behind it lies the unknown, full of both danger and possibility. The choice of whether to push open that door or leave it closed is one that civilization as a whole will have to face.
That's all for today's discussion on the secrets of the human genetic lock. What do you all think? If one day you could unlock your genetic potential, would you choose to?
Yes. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video with your friends. Let's explore these mysterious topics together.